Court is now in session for innocent until proven guilty. On the last episode, I brought the infamous Sonic 06 to trial. Sonic 06 is considered by many critics to be the definitive worst game in the franchise, yet a new challenger has arisen to compete for that distinction. I've received requests for this notorious title shortly after it came out, and I had been curious to see if it lived up to its reputation, but I lacked the console to do so. Now that I'm a proud owner of a Wii U, I can finally determine if the dreaded Sonic Boom is innocent or guilty. Sonic Boom: Rise of Lyric was released on November 11th, 2014 to coincide with the cartoon that it serves as a prequel to. Unlike the majority of the Blue Blurs catalog, Rise of Lyric was not developed by Sonic Team. Instead, the reins were handed over to Big Red Button, whose resume includes, well, nothing else. Rise of Lyric was their debut effort, so Big Red Button had a lot to prove. As a result, Rise of Lyric begins with a bang. We have seconds to ponder the fate of Sega's mascot as the narrative shifts a day into the past. It appears to be business as usual for Sonic and the gang as they pursue a fleeing Eggman, but the customary villain takes a backseat to the true nemesis, Lyric. Lyric is the last survivor of an ancient race. He was imprisoned by his peers 1,000 years ago, but our heroes accidentally free him from his tomb. His goal is to gather the Chaos Crystals in order to revive his robotic army and eradicate organic life forms. It's up to the Hedgehog and his friends to stop the Fiend's scheme by collecting the Chaos Crystals before the snake gets its claws on them. To accomplish this task, the protagonists engage in several different playstyles. The action largely centers around platforming and high-speed chases, but there are also top-down, driving, and even beat-em-up segments. The variety of genres within this animated tie-in is impressive, and they're executed pretty well. The platforming is slower than its predecessors, but it's enhanced by 2D sections that do a great job of showcasing each character's unique skills. Sonic uses a spin dash to propel up ramps, Knuckles can climb red mark ceilings and walls, Amy leaps acrobatically across narrow ledges, and Tails deploys his buddy bots to gain access to locked areas. All four members are essential for making progress, and I really appreciated that they all get a moment to shine. The quartet is aided in their journey by the countless boost and bounce pads, as well as the multi-purposed Enter Beams. The Enter Beams were created by Tails from their disabled restraints and are used for removing barriers, swinging on zip lines, and my personal favorite, roping up baddies and flinging them over the edge. The Enter Beam is pivotal in dealing with certain bosses near the conclusion, so it's best to master it as quickly as possible or else you're gonna have a bad time. Speaking of bad times, remember the hellish torment of the speed sections in 06? Boom's interpretation of these sequences is an absolute delight that I breezed through without dropping a single F-bomb. I even kept my cool when Metal Sonic entered the picture and turned up the intensity knob to the extreme. This is the closest that Boom gets to the typical 3D Sonic format, and I very much approve of it. Plus, they always finish with a super cool group pose. How awesome is that? The previously mentioned beat-em-up segments break up the traditional run and jump formula and are a welcome addition. The fearsome foursome turn Lyric's minions into scrap by dishing out a barrage of melee maneuvers which can be charged to increase their power, as well as signature moves including the homing attack and Amy's spinning hammer assault. In addition to their regular tools of the trade, there are extra weapons such as water balloons, a literal handgun, and the battle trumpet. Wow, I guess this is what Revolution X meant by music is the weapon. The last mode, and certainly the least, is the ship stages River Rush and Undersea Bolt. Undersea Bolt is a fairly standard shooter, but River Rush was a huge pain in the ass. The controls felt awkward and made it tough to destroy enemies while avoiding obstacles. Whoever thought that it was a good idea to assign the projectiles to the right stick was out of their mind. The ship levels are a clever gimmick, but I honestly had more fun with Shadow's vehicle escapades in 06. Similarly to 06, the main plot objectives are accessed from a central hub world and are later labeled by yellow exclamation marks on the map. The map also indicates where important NPCs and optional side quests can be found. The map made traversing the vast terrain of Bygone Island and Cliff's excavation site much easier, and I would have wandered aimlessly without it, so kudos to the designers. Big Red Button tossed a lot of ingredients into this Sonic stew, and the scope of the experience is quite impressive, but the presentation is a mixed bag. On the plus side, the various modes and cinematics between them flow into each other seamlessly with very little waiting in comparison to 06's constant aggravating loading screens, so I applaud the programmers for fixing this annoyance. Another improvement is in regards to the difficulty, which was massively scaled back with the safety net of unlimited lives and checkpoints even in boss battles. Admittedly, this does make it a bit too easy, but it was nice not feeling the urge to rip my hair out in frustration. After all, this is based on an animated series, so they're targeting a casual demographic. That audience would ideally want an interactive version of the show, and that's what they more or less got. The cutscenes and visuals give off a classic Saturday morning Nickelodeon vibe. The voice actors spout dialogue that further complements this, though it can get really stupid.
Oh, Sonic! You know what's better than an ambush?
An ambush with ice cream?
That sounds delicious. But no! The post-ambush ambush! I am a chef who can't cook.
A chef that can't cook? Isn't that called a waiter?
I heard you, you big red lobster!
Muscle-bound Knuckles is especially guilty of this.
Then we go that way.
There's no time like the present.
Wait, there are presents?
No.
The Echidna is a total lunkhead, and I can't say that I'm a fan of the changes made to his personality, but I adapted to it. Shadow only appearing briefly, on the other hand, that I have a problem with. Shadow's a badass, and he shouldn't have been relegated to a mere cameo, but I digress.
Is that all you got?
Character nitpicks aside, the core gameplay elements are solid. The controls are tight and responsive, the protagonist's abilities are utilized excellently, and the music from Richard Jacques is good, but not as memorable as 06's stellar soundtrack. Unfortunately, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. As should be common knowledge by now, Boom was plagued by bugs. I say was because there have been updates since its release that patched a number of these issues. In spite of these efforts to correct all of the mistakes, I managed to encounter a few glitches. In fact, I literally became stuck in River Rush on my first try. I spent minutes searching for a switch to clear a path, but there was no switch, just an error that had to be reset. I already mentioned about how this Wii U title is slower paced than earlier Sonic entries, but one factor that heavily contributes to this is the frame rate, which frequently chugged along under an acceptable standard upon release. The patch helped stabilize the FPS, making for a more enjoyable experience, but I still noticed a few minor instances of frame rate drop. All in all, minus the complaints I listed and occasional camera quirks, Big Red Button has addressed most of the flaws that garnered their initial offering a Metacritic score of 32. On the topic of criticisms, one aspect that wasn't as bashed was the story. Compared to 06's serious plot, this is light, kid-friendly material filled with tons of juvenile jokes and pop culture references, including the Lord of the Rings,
One more ring to rule them all.
and even our hero's favorite food.
Look at me, I'm explaining myself to these creatures that probably live off chili dogs.
Gotta love that fan service.
Important things in life.
Like your friends. And your family.
And chili dogs.
To briefly summarize the course of events, Lyric and Eggman team up to get revenge against Sonic. It turns out that the Hedgehog traveled to the past to obtain the map to the Chaos Crystals and was responsible for trapping the reptile in the process. The evil duo repeatedly ambushed the protagonist's mission, but after multiple failings to grab the crystals, the partnership is dissolved by the treacherous Snake. The Doctor becomes a joke, and his attempt to sabotage his former ally is laughable.
Watch this.
Impressive.
Ultimately, the road leads them to the scene depicted in the intro. Not surprising to anyone, the blue blur survived and the gang has to stop the twisted reptile's plans. The final fight is a piece of cake. Just pummel him until the cue to open the force field with enter beams pops up, and then choose the pertinent character to retrieve the crystals one by one. Upon the completion of this task, the vile creature is finally defeated.
Interesting.
Or is he?
Got him.
Looks like Eggman had the last laugh after all. Lyric is restrained and Shadow returns to do absolutely nothing, unfortunately. Peace is restored as fireworks adorn the sky and the credits roll. Lyric's fate is unaddressed, however, a post-credits Easter egg reveals that the Doctor has an evil scheme brewing, but we'll never see that because, yeah. Sonic Boom was supposed to be a simple kid show tie-in. Who would have ever guessed that it would make such a devastating impact on the future of the franchise? It's undeniable that Big Red Button bit off more than they could chew, but does that mean that their first swing at bat is the complete strikeout? Let's find out in the breakdown! Big Red Button may be comprised of former Naughty Dog employees, but none of their Crash Bandicoot roots shine through here. It's as if they developed collective amnesia and forgot how to produce a quality game. The story is shallow with dumb dialogue, and there are bugs and frame rate stutters in spite of being patched. This is inexcusable, and we should not condone publishers putting out unfinished products. Sonic Team's track record in recent years isn't great, but they would have done a much better job than this. For shame, Big Red Button. For shame. You are right, Mr. Guilty. Rise of Lyric with Sonic Team at the helm would probably have been better. Then again, Big Red Button did improve on a number of 06's failings, especially the loading screens, which are practically non-existent. The camera, while still flawed, is a huge step above its predecessor. Best of all, the speed sections don't make you want to ram your head into a wall. Sonic Boom is based on a cartoon, so it's not supposed to be taken seriously. I agree that the glitches and lag are inexcusable, but they did a pretty good job of cleaning up their mess. As it stands now, this Wii U licensed entry is fully playable and enjoyable, and I don't think it deserves the hate.
Blue streak. Beats by Sonic the Hedgehog. Too fast for the naked eye. Sonic the Hedgehog.
In the case of Sonic Boom, I ruled that the verdict is innocent, but with a caveat. Big Red Button has improved Rise of Lyric's overall quality with their updates, but it should have been like that from the start, and it deserves to be punished for the poor state that it hit store shelves in. That's why I'm temporarily exiling it to IUPG Purgatory. Do I believe this is the worst Sonic title? No, I don't, and I don't think 06 is either. I know people have horror stories involving both, and I sympathize with them, but my experience was positive. I definitely recommend checking it out, though it shouldn't have needed a patch to become decent. It's a shame. Anyway, now that I've judged this current generation bargain bin fare, I'm gonna look at some really interesting ROM hacks. Be sure to come back for that, but until then, court is now adjourned. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, click any of the boxes on the screen right now and you'll be able to watch a few more of my videos. And if you haven't already, be sure to click that red box right there in the corner and that'll subscribe to the channel and you'll be able to keep up to date with all of my current content. Thanks again, everyone.